Hello, welcome to episode 6 of the OK podcast. Today we have all three of us together. And gang's all here.
The stars have aligned.
Yeah, right. One of us is in lockdown. Two of us is off work at the right time. So yeah.
Exactly. So
So
we are
today,
all here.
yeah, today we're going to be talking about the calling, our experiences. Each one was a judge. I was a participant, and Kenny was a spectator. And maybe we'll talk about some tales afterwards, depending on how much time we have.
Alrighty.
Yichin, you want to start?
Yeah, sure. So for those of you who don't know, which I'm not sure why you wouldn't know, we had the calling this weekend. That's a $10,000 tournament held in Las Vegas, USA. Everybody had a boatload of fun. And generally, I'd say it was a pretty good showing for the game itself. We had over 750 competitors in the main event and 900 competitors for the pre-release. Yeah, so I was a judge for the event. I was on staff. Oliver over here was a participant, so he was playing in the event. And then we also have Kenny, who was watching the event from his lockdown fortress over in Australia.
Yeah, following passively online in a few different ways. I did watch the final.
Mhm. Yeah, so I guess we'll just talk about our experiences both as in those three roles, and then we'll kind of just have a general. How do you feel about the calling, Oliver? How do you feel about the calling after playing it for 2 days? Was it? Yeah, 2 days.
You mean 2 hours more like? Because I dropped after 1 and 3.
I mean, the side events are still part of the calling,
I
right?
guess, yeah, yeah. So as a player, um, the bad part about participating in the main event is that if you are able to actually like make it to day two, you're not going to actually be able to play any side events because you're just going to be playing game after game for the main event, right?
Hmm.
So there is a downside to that. I did have some friends that were like, "Oh, I can't use my vouchers because I'm playing in day two of the event, or I played in the main event this whole time and I haven't been able to use my daily double vouchers or something." So yeah, I think there can be a little bit more organization or like flexibility with the vouchers. Like they did allow you to like turn it in and stuff, but yeah, playing the calling for the main event at least it was fun. I did get high rolled a bunch of times. It's That's just part of the game, honestly.
Yeah, that's
Um,
just part of the meta. Honestly, that's
yeah,
the main thing.
yeah, like getting Lumina, double Lumina with Saber Bolt in turn three. Like, what can I do? Yeah, I don't know. I think my deck was fine. It's just I drew poorly. My opponents got lucky, and 1-3 drop is totally okay with me. Honestly, I didn't really have that high of expectations, so I just dropped and then just played side events. I went 4-0 in a
The way
side
to
event.
never be disappointed.
Yeah, right. I got 4-0 in a side event. I got a bunch of tickets, and I got pretty much made my money back. So I'm not too sad about that.
Yep, and then the next day you went 3-0 in draft, right?
Uh,
Tales of Aria draft.
yeah, but like, is that something to be proud of? There's all the new cards, right?
True, but maybe you're better at using new cards than other people, right?
I can
That's what I
read.
mean.
Yeah,
I can read.
Oh, are
Unlike
you saying your opponents couldn't read?
no, I'm just
I
kidding.
was gonna say, unlike me, I'm not very good at reading. Apparently,
No.
despite the fact I teach it to kids,
Yeah, right.
I myself am terrible with reading comprehension.
Yeah. I was just trying to make that joke because Yichin knows I don't read. And
Yeah,
like
that's true.
when we play Arkham Horror or something, I'm just like, I can't do basic math. I can't read, etc., etc. Is 3 greater than 4? I had to think about that for a while.
Well,
The
you
real
also had some
questions.
trouble getting to the event, right? You had your canceled flight.
Oh yeah, yeah. So I mean, it's not on CFV's fault for that. It's just like just
Mhm.
weather issues. Like there was thunderstorms around Vegas, so my flight got canceled. I had to go find a new flight on the day of. Kind of stressful, but I got there in the end.
Do you feel kind of well rested when you went into the event?
Uh, sure. I don't
You
know.
didn't feel like tired or anything from all the traveling?
Um, no,
I
not
know that's a
really.
major thing where you have a lot of sports teams or
Yeah, just like mental
competitors.
fatigue, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. No, no, not
The big
really.
thing.
Yeah. I'm like kind of used to traveling, but like in the pandemic, this is actually my first time flying, so maybe I was pretty fatigued, but I didn't really notice it because I was pretty excited to participate in the event and play Fab. But
Mhm.
like, yeah, I don't know. I had a good time overall. I'm not, yeah, I'm not trying to be negative or anything.
Well, that's good to hear. I guess I'll go over kind of my experience as a judge for the event. So flashback over to about a month ago. I basically sent an email to the CFB events team, and I asked, "Hey, I am a judge for Fab. I've done events for you guys before. Do you want to hire me for the calling?" And they said yes, and I was basically in. It was really very painless process to sign up. I imagine they had a bit of trouble making ensuring staff would be there. Fab is still relatively new in the States, so there aren't too many judges around. Most of the judges are judges because they work for a store or are enfranchised players that might want to compete in the calling. So I believe we had around 60 to 70 staff members for the event, at least on the floor judging and running the events, which is really relatively respectable for a event of this size. I never felt like they judges were stretched too thin. We did have a couple issues where certain judges got sick the night before, or had some issues on the floor during the day and had to step out. But obviously, no offense or anything to them. It's just it happens sometimes, and some of those cases, you might feel a little overworked, but overall, it was a pretty good experience working for them. Nothing too bad. I did hear, however, that many of the participants had some issues with judge rulings, and I wanted to clarify that many of the judges there did not have too much experience in Fab, but had a lot of experience with tournament logistics, which is why they were brought on. Because we were short staffed at sometimes, most of those judges did take to the floor and helped field questions and kind of just like funnel all the questions to the judges that knew how to play Fab. So I do apologize if you guys had a negative experience with any judge at the event. Most of those guys were basically just still on the learning side of things, and were basically just committed to making sure you got the right answer, but didn't have the rules knowledge to uh, deliver a confident ruling one way or the other.
Yeah.
That is a bit of a shame, though.
Yeah, I do have something to add to that. Like most of my friends had like some really weird judge rulings. Like
Mhm.
my one of my friends attacked a Otarath with a merciful on the field. The judge said that he takes 2 damage instead of 1. Which
Mm,
yeah, and then just like if that ever happens, and if you really know, like there is a bad ruling, you just appeal to the head judge.
yeah,
Um,
usually the head judge either knows enough about Fab to make a proper ruling, or knows that one of the judges on the floor knows enough about Fab to make a proper ruling.
yeah, yeah. Another instance was like some guy was like, "Oh, my seismic surge token pops, but you don't get priority." I'm like, I'm pretty sure I do, but let's call a judge over." So yeah, I don't know. It's
Yeah.
just stuff like that.
Yeah, even if you're not like super confident in the judge staff, it's still important to call the judge, just because that at the very least, it will be good for you to get a second opinion. You can always appeal for a second opinion, of course, and it's good for the judge staff just to make sure, like, hey, this is an area of weakness for them, and just make sure that later on it doesn't happen in future callings or other future events. Oh, sorry, you're gonna say something, Kenny?
Yeah, I was just saying, I was saying before that it is a bit unfortunate that because the game is fairly new, there were judges getting incorrect rulings, etc. Um, but yeah, I would definitely second Oliver's statement that you should, if you're ever in doubt, appeal to the head judge.
Yeah.
Especially in a game as new, relatively new as Fab, where if you're very confident about it, I would say that probably most of the players are probably more confident in the rules than some of the judges may have been. So just be sure to appeal.
Exactly. I did see some players try and step in for a lot of the judge rulings. I will note that usually that doesn't work because, of course, judges really can't take spectators on their word for it. But
Mhm.
hey, anything they can do to kind of make sure that, hey, this might be wrong. Judge, please double check. That's always great. Due to the due to the pandemic, many of the judges there, or many of the judges from elsewhere that would have come to the calling, especially from New Zealand, where obviously LSS would have probably sent a liaison, weren't able to make it. So a lot of the judge staff had to be sourced in the native U.S. I imagine if there weren't travel restrictions, we would have had a much better, more experienced judge team because we could have pulled from areas of the region, areas of the world where there were already experienced judges in both tournament logistics and Fab.
Yeah, that does make sense as far as just, the real life logistics of the world at the moment.
Mhm.
It's
Cool.
unfortunate, but understandable.
Yeah. Fortunately, I did get paid pretty well. I did get paid a nice chunk of money. Still better than minimum wage, I would say. And then we got 3 boxes for working 2 days of each first edition monarch and regular monarch. The regular monarch is sitting in my car unopened for obvious reasons. And then I did open the first edition Monarch in the evening. I did get some pretty nice pulls. So overall, I'd say it was a pretty good weekend. Had a lot of fun. Even though I ended up driving for 20 hours, it was still a good experience.
A hell of a lot of driving. I remember when I was on my final placement for university, I had to drive for 7 hours in a day, and I thought that was a lot.
Ooh.
Yeah,
20 hours
yeah.
is 20 hours is killer.
Well, fortunately, it was 20 hours both ways, so 10 hours each way. It wasn't as bad, but still a little on the tiring side, especially towards the end where I'm just like, oh, I just want to get home already.
And open up my boxes.
Yeah, and obviously, at these sorts of events, you're expected to travel a lot, even if you go by plane. So there's some amount of travel fatigue, and you're always obviously going to be exhausted at the end of every weekend for these events because it's basically a convention, except you do more thinking during the day. Lots of mental fatigue expected. Still pretty good.
I can talk about it a little bit as a spectator, I guess. I didn't, to
Oh yeah,
clarify,
sure.
I didn't spectate a huge amount of the event because I had a few other things going on. But I was just going to say that it is nice to see that Fab is getting kind of the proper event style treatment, right? When I guess I compare it to things like Magic, etc., where it's getting proper coverage, proper commentators who do actually understand the game to some extent. Um, that's good, right? I've watched coverage from other games from other companies where they just get people who work at the company and don't really know anything about the game, and so the commentary is just totally off. So it's good to have commentary that actually has some level of insight, which is good. So that part was good. Overall, there were multiple different channels to follow it on. I think there was Facebook updates, there were Twitter updates, which I will admit did slow down a little bit. I don't know if it was just my Twitter or something, but I noticed that there was quite a few the first day, and then they kind of disappeared. So probably could have been a little bit better on that end. But there was enough for me at home to be able to follow. I will say though, oh my goodness, just to be my usual down self. Man, that final was extremely boring. Like I don't mean that in any kind of slight towards either of the players, right? They played really well, and obviously they played an intense game that was really close and very stressful after a whole weekend. But yeah, just I cannot stand watching fatigue. It has to be the most boring matchup to ever watch. So yeah, and I guess for me, I don't know, it just seems to also be a bit of an indication of just how good Chain is.
Yeah,
But
he
yeah,
definitely was the boogeyman, and his conversion rate was absolutely insane. So
mm-hmm.
the counters that people were expecting to counter chain, I've noticed on the floor I was watching some of them, and most of them got high rolled. I saw a Levia that was 4-0 going into round 5. I was like, oh wow, Levia is doing really well. Pretty good. And then I proceeded to watch him lose back-to-back matches against Chain, who pulled off triple Art of Orchard. So I was like, that's a little unfortunate.
Yep. It's just yeah, it's very different from what I'm used to. For reference, I haven't played Fab as much as I would have liked to, so I've been a little bit behind on the meta. But just yeah, watching the Chain matches, I took a screenshot at some point because there was like 16 cards on the board that Chain had done stuff with at some point in the
Yeah.
final, and I was like, what has happened? Like it's just I stepped away from the game for 2 seconds, and you've gone from having a 5 card turn being massive to 16 cards or go home. So yeah, quite interesting in that sense to see Fab evolve in just a single set. But yeah, just watching block for the whole final, and props to him for it being successful, right? Obviously, it was a good meta call, so it's no criticism on a competitive end, right? But just want to clarify, I'm not criticizing either player at all. More just the deck itself.
Yeah, it wasn't I did feel like it was a little boring to watch as an experienced player, but from a lot of the comments I saw online, especially towards the newer players, people were pretty excited about the entire match itself.
For sure.
Which maybe Mhm.
I definitely agree. So when I was watching, I watched via Twitch, and most of the comments were pretty hyped, and lots of new players joining in and asking questions, and people in the chat were being very helpful about it, and just talking generally about what was happening. So it was, as far as spectators go, it was good for that sense. In that sense, right? And that it was a very welcoming chat, and there was lots of explanation about what was going on. I just as we said, as an experienced player, I was just like,
Yeah, I know, right? Well, I mean, you did kind of take a break or fab right
mm,
around when Dash was kind of at peak popularity, right? So I guess you
oh
kind
yeah.
of you're kind of done with watching fatigue matches because you know it's just gonna be block, ping whatever, block.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Was just a bit much.
Do you have
I wrote
any?
an article ages
Mhm.
about the dash fatigue decks at the time as well, where it was a similar problem that I was having. Fatigue is, I don't know, just my problem mainly is with fatigue. Fatigue is just such a boring deck. It's
Mhm.
again, I'm not saying it's not competitively viable, and I don't begrudge anyone for playing it. It's a competitive game with high stakes prizes, so you should play. You should use whatever tools you need to in order to win the game. But just on a game design level, God, fatigue is so boring.
Dude, imagine if drone was unbanned.
Oh no
Oof.
way! There's no zero chance drone
I
is
know,
getting
I
unbanned.
know, I know.
Yeah, one thing that you touched up upon, Kenny, was how friendly the community was, and
Hmm.
I did kind of feel this already going in, so I am kind of a little biased in my evaluation of it. But I did feel that the overall sense of camaraderie between Fab players at the event was pretty good. Obviously, there are a couple of salty players, there's a couple of curmudgeons that are like, blah blah blah. But for the most part, everybody was happy to be there. Everybody was having a good time, even if they were losing. Most of them were just happy that, hey, people are here, people are playing Fab. This is great. Most of the complaints I had were not regarding other players, but about things outside of the game and outside of the event. Mostly it was about like certain aspects of the event itself, like prize ticket payout and all that. But everything regarding community, I haven't heard anything but positivity. So I hope that it will remain that way. I know, obviously, as the game gets bigger, you're gonna have more people that are gonna be, less invested, a little bit more negative towards things. But I do hope that this sort of honeymoon period for the Fab community lasts a long time.
Did you
Yeah,
meet?
I agree. Long may it live.
So, Yichin, did
Sorry,
you meet with any like big name content creators there?
mostly I just said hi. Yeah, to be honest, I get a little nervous when I meeting big name content creators. So I said hi. I said a couple words of like, "Hey, I love your content," and that's about it. I did, however, as a creeper, I did stalk multiple content creators' games. I was watching like Zach Bunn's games from Team Covenant. I was watching a couple games from like Kitchen Table CCG and like some of the other big name pros like Dante. But I didn't really say hi. I was just more like, "Hey, he's playing. This is interesting."
Okay, yeah, I was just wondering how they interacted with the community and everything. Like, if they were
I
also
would
being
say
friendly.
Yeah, I'd say all of them were very friendly. Even the ones that didn't play so much, like the professor, he was there. He was just like basically doing a meet and greet, and it was always very positive, and everybody was very happy to meet him. I think one of the cosplayers that was there at the event, Tapito Claus, she wrote a lengthy Twitter thread, basically gushing about how well the event was run and how welcoming the community was. So all that positive propaganda can
Yeah,
really help with a self-hab to the masses, hopefully.
yeah, fantastic. I was going to say that I've met Zach Button as well, not through Fab, but some years ago playing some of the Fantasy Flight games. Yeah, he's a nice guy. He is as nice as he seems on the podcasts. Sorry,
Yeah,
on the podcasts and all of the videos. So top bloke. I really like the Team Covenant guys.
yeah, they're really good. I appreciate everything they do for the community, and I said as much to his face, and that was about it. That was about like the extent of my actual interaction with Zach.
I'm just imagining fangirl Yichin.
Yeah,
Just that so just like
just
she's
the blushing wallflower peeking behind the corner.
that's
Oh,
right.
that's Zach Bunn. Oh my God, he looked at me.
I hope he calls for a judge.
Oh, he did call for a judge a couple times. Actually, he didn't call for a judge one time, and I corrected him. Uh,
Oh,
I will talk about this because there's zero chance he listens to this. And if you do listen to this, I mean no offense, Zach. During the Pro Quest, he was playing. I think he was like 3-2 at that point. He was playing, or no, 3-1 at that point. And he was playing against I think it was a Levia, and he attacked with an axe and said attack for 3. And I instantly corrected him as I was walking by. I was like, that attacks for 2. And he's like, oh, okay. So that's my other interaction with Zach that weekend.
ooh, big scandal.
Yeah. Misrepresenting the game state.
Yeah.
Yep.
To be
Yeah.
fair, it was at the very end of a long term, and what he did was he attacked with one axe, did did another attack and then attacked with the other axe. So he just didn't realize that you have to immediately follow up with the axe to get the +1 bonus for Bolton.
Yeah, yeah.
Not
At least it
Bolton.
wasn't. At least it wasn't a case where his opponent was like, "Wait, how many times have you swung with your axes?" He's like, "I don't know, no, 2 explores." It wasn't something
Yeah.
like that. So,
Yeah. Obviously, I did
Yes, Jack.
hear rumors about people cheating during the event. I did have a couple of issues where people did something that needed to be, well, remedied or beaten out of them because they come from a Magic background and aren't as experienced. One of the top players, I won't name names, but they
Apart
had
from
an
Zach
issue.
Bun.
No, it wasn't that fun. I was gonna say he wasn't the top player, but I think that's extremely rude. No, one of the top players at I think it was round 5 or round 6. I noticed that they were taking notes, and so I had to have a very unfortunate talk with them, and we had a whole
Mm,
investigation as to the extent of the notes and whatnot, just to make sure. Eventually, we ended up downgrading it, mostly because it was determined that the notes they took did not provide him with any considerable advantage. I think he just took notes about the last like 2 or 3 cards in the opponent's deck because the opponent was pitching and redrawing them every turn. Obviously, we got guidance actually from LSS's rules team that we should be a little bit more lax in enforcing some of the penalties and be a little bit more forgiving in issuing downgrades during the event, primarily because it was the first event of this sort in the US, other than, there's a calling in New Jersey a couple years ago, but it was pretty small. And they didn't want people who were relatively unfamiliar with how Fab tournament rules differed from other competitive card games to feel like they were cheated out of a win or feel like they were
mm.
unfairly,
I think
um,
that
mhm.
yeah, I think that's a good call, especially with the note taking thing. Is I will admit that like the lack of being able to take notes in it is it would be a surprise as a Magic player, right? Because you're used to going Thoughtseize, look at your opponent's hand, write everything down, take notes, cross it
Exactly.
off as you go. So that's something that I can see as very easy to like a very easy infraction to make. And I imagine that there were lots of players on the weekend. I don't know how many you ran into, but I would imagine that there were quite a few who probably did do something similar to that. And there were probably
Yeah,
quite a few people who did it and then never got pulled up on it because the opponent didn't know either.
exactly. And I will say that the event that the match that I caught him doing that, there were 20 spectators watching it, as well as one other judge, who was experienced in Fab, and none of them noticed it except me. Not to toot
Mm,
my own horn or anything, but it just speaks to the experience, speaks to the fact that most people are so unfamiliar with what's acceptable in Fab, what's not, and people just assume going from a Magic background, oh, the tournament rules are basically the same as Magic. There's not much to worry about. I'll just go in, do my usual thing, and it'll be fine.
that's right, folks. We have top judge Yichin on our podcast. You heard it here.
With
I
glowing
did,
reviews, you know.
I did feel a little uncomfortable making some rulings because it was one because a lot of the guidance that we were provided by LSS wasn't particularly clear as to how lax we should be, whether or not we should be, be more, armory level event lax, or whether we should, be slightly better than that, or how how strict should we be? That wasn't really made clear to us. So a lot of the rewinds and game state changes that I had to like fix, I was encouraged and actually basically required to consult a head judge before doing so. I imagine during the side events, this wasn't as prevalent, so I assume people who were playing side events, I heard that they had much more negative experiences on average with judges than the main event, which is understandable
Mm,
because the less experienced judges, and it's more
yeah,
lax over there.
yeah. Again, that's a bit of an unfortunate circumstance, but I suppose it's like again not ideal, but it's just kind of the reality of the world as we live in it at the moment.
Yeah, but overall, great stuff. The calling, I want to talk about the limited format, and then we can kind of segue into uh, the heroes in general and the set itself.
Mhm.
I really was impressed with how well the limited format felt. Going from Monarch, I consistently felt like I was being starved for playables and sealed, and I
Mm,
never felt like my deck was super great. There are a couple, hands that were like, "Oh, this is great. I'm doing what I want to." But more often than not, you had to run a bunch of mediocre cards to shore up your 30 card count to make sure that you lasted long enough to close out the game.
Mm-hmm.
Tales of Aria, meanwhile, I believe that every hero should have around 45 to 50 playables in each pool due to how the elements and how the sub-elements work. So I did feel like that there was actual deck building to be had within the skill pool, and I assume draft later on will be much more skill testing since you're fighting for 3 heroes, you're trying to read which heroes under drafted, you're trying to read which elements open, so on and so forth.
That's good, because I was going to say that. So the only calling event that I went to was the Calling Sydney, where, little plug, I made top 8. But I do remember thinking in the sealed, there wasn't too much in the sense that I could play Warrior or I could play Brute, and then my deck was pretty much made for me.
Mm-hmm.
And then once I got to the top 8 as well, I did my draft, and I drafted, I think, 31 playable cards. So I literally just had to go through my deck and go, well, I guess I will cut this card. And that was pretty much it. So not a huge amount of deck building. I do think personally that Fab is not a great limited game. Just my own assessment. I'm sure that perhaps it's better now, but just the experiences that I've had has not been super positive. I'm glad to hear that you've had some more positive experiences with Tails though.
Yeah, I definitely think after playing Tails that 3, if you want to make a limited set, 3 is the sweet spot because right now, right, with 4 heroes in the draft, you're basically assuming that there's only one other person drafting what you're drafting. With 3, especially with Tails, you have 5 to 6 players fighting for your element, and 2 to 3 players fighting for your hero. So it felt a lot more. There were a lot more choices to be made, and there were a lot more sacrifices to be made in the draft format.
I think one of the problems that I have with Fab drafting is a similar problem to what I had with World of Warcraft TCG drafting all those years ago, which is if you compare it to something like Magic drafting or the Spoils drafting, those games have fairly open restrictions. So, in Magic, in the middle of a draft, you can pick up white and then you can switch to red and be okay or whatever. In Fab, you can't really do that. Like because it's only like correct me if I'm wrong, it's a 3-pack draft, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so in total, how many cards you get? Like 42 or something
45.
like that?
45, yeah.
45. Okay, yeah. So you don't have a huge amount of wriggle room, right? If you commit like 10 picks to Brute, you pretty much have to stick to that from that point on. And it's just, there's not a lot of room to swing around or anything. I actually feel like Fab would be a more interesting limited game if they actually just let you, mix 2 classes together or something like that.
So
you could
speaking
play
of which, I
Guardian,
think
Ranger.
I think you'll find this interesting. They did experiment with a more open sealed format called Shapeshifter Sealed, where you got 2 packs of each of WTR, Arcane Rising, and Crucible of War. And they had 2 special rules. One was that you could play any class card in any class. And 2, any class card that referred to a specific class card by name in the text referred to any non-generic card. So you could boost, and as long as you had a Rune Blade, or like if you had like a Rune Blade like warrior card, it would succeed.
Yep.
So
I mean,
I did hear only positivity coming out from the reports of that event. So I am interested in trying it out and seeing how. I don't think it's going to be very competitive, but it's going to be a fun format to play, and seeing how open it is.
I think that would be a step in the right direction. What I would probably go with is something more akin to what Fantasy Flight did with their LCGs, where it was like basically you'd play, those games for reference like Game of Thrones LCG and Legend of the Five Rings LCG. You have clans or houses, etc. So you'd still draft like a main color, much like you draft Ranger as an example. But then what you could do is you could nominate a second class or a second thing that you could also play cards from. So not quite as wild as Shapeshifter. Because that almost feels like, I mean, it's interesting. I'm glad that it was open and enjoyable, but it feels like you just pick the best card out of every pack because color no longer matters, or anything like that. Or it's sealed, so you just play all the best cards rather than playing or having to make a choice, right?
Yeah.
I think that restricting it to 2 classes, so you could play Ranger Guardian or something like that, would be interesting because at least there is some level of decision to be made there.
Yeah.
And there's some interesting combos that you could potentially pull off. So that's nice. Like things that wouldn't normally be available.
Exactly. And we're kind of veering off course, but I think this is where all the cube designers who are interested in draft will have a field day, kind of figuring out what the best combination is to have a deep and meaningful draft. I've talked with a couple of them, and they all have wildly different ways they feel like to make a interesting draft with multiple decisions to be made. So I'm interested in seeing kind of which one comes out on top and which ones have success as the game gets older.
Hmm. Hmm.
Do you want my
Uh,
opinion on drafting? Because I did the Tails draft, right?
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
You didn't
So
do it. You smashed it.
it wasn't that big an event though, or I guess it was like a big event, but it was
It
only
was the
3
biggest
rounds.
event. It was the biggest event of the day. It
Biggest
was
side event.
160 people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, so I don't agree with Kenny completely about not being able to
Mhm.
pivot that easily. The
Mhm.
way I drafted, I'm to be frank, I really hate limited and I don't know how to draft. So that's my disclaimer. The people that
You
were in
hear
my
that?
pod,
So
yeah,
there you go. You go.
yeah, the people that were in my pod, they seemed to know what they were doing. Like the guy across from me, he was like, "Wow, I passed on this card and or I did something I shouldn't have done and I got rewarded for it." So I'm assuming that he
Oh, those
has
guys are always the worst players.
really.
Not necessarily to like to at skill level, but also just the worst players to play with.
Yeah.
The ones
So
that loudly exclaim, "Wow, this card wheeled! Wow!"
yeah.
Oh
Well,
god.
okay. Yeah.
But go on.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I had a couple of those people at my table, and they're just like, "Wow, you guys have no idea what you guys are doing, huh?" So, whatever. The way I drafted was I picked a lot of.
You showed them.
Well, I mean, I didn't play with them. Let's like cross.
Those
Uh,
crossplay pairings, but
yeah.
still, you went
Oh,
3-0,
okay.
so whatever. They probably don't go 3-0
Yeah.
easy.
To be honest, I didn't see them at the top table, so.
Oh, rough.
Yeah. Anyways, yeah. So the way I drafted was I picked a single element essentially. The element that kept popping up was lightning for me, and I did see a lot of Runeblade cards that were coming up. So to me, that showed that Briar was pretty open in my pod. Since Briar is also elemental or lightning, sorry, I could have easily pivoted towards that, even though I was picking some ranger cards because I was planning on going Lexi since it had lighted up and I had what's the other one? What's the other mythic? Frostlock or something? But yeah, I feel like it's actually very easy to pivot, and there were some very good Briar cards that are being passed around, and no one's picking it up. So this was like
Yeah,
halfway through pack one.
and I'll jump on this before you do, Kenny, because I know you'll have something to say this. But I think this is I know you don't like the talent system, but I think this
Mm.
is where the talent system really shines in limited because it allows heroes, or more like it allows drafters to easily evaluate or easily pivot because you have multiple pools that are usable with multiple heroes, and
Mhm.
only a small portion of each pack is dedicated to a single hero. So
Mhm.
as long as you are drafting kind of the elements in Tales of Aria draft, pivoting is
Mhm.
easy, and it's actually that's one of the reasons why I'm so up on Tales of Aria in general is because of that tri-elemental system and the three heroes, it makes it very easy to read signals and very easy to get rewarded in drafting.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah. So I
What do you think you're gonna say? So you go.
yeah I had like a what is it like a breakdown of how to draft before the night before from Yichin. So um I just take whatever he told me. Um, anyways, so I'm breaking down my deck right now. I had let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I had 40 playable cards, and my deck was 34 cards. I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I had 12 Elemental Ranger cards. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. 13 lightning cards, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 9 ice cards. So the majority of my deck was actually not elemental ranger cards, and that allowed me to like fuse like pretty consistently. Yeah. So
Mhm.
yeah, you would be picking the elements, not the element. This is very weird to explain because they're elemental cards, but they don't have the elemental type. So you pick the element cards, and then you can pivot into your class once you have like the baseline, I guess, if that makes sense.
General reads of the table, basically.
Yeah.
Mhm. Mhm.
So
So I was curious. Yichin, what did you think I was gonna say about this? I'm
Oh,
curious before I
no,
actually share
no.
my
I just wanted
thoughts.
to mention the talent system because I know you've been pretty down with the talent system before. I just wanted to
Yeah.
mention that I think this is where the talent system shines in creating a very closed off environment that is good to draft.
Sure. And I'm still down on the talent system generally, to clarify. So, you are right. My opinion hasn't changed there.
Yeah, I know.
But I do agree with you both in that in a drafting sense, it is improved as opposed to the strict classes, right? Like
Yeah.
it makes sense.
Yep.
Where if you don't draft Ranger, as you said, but you draft Lightning, then you've got two options, and then you can delve into either later.
Mm-hmm.
So
Exactly.
again, I'm only talking about my experience from early Fab, where
Yeah.
it was only Brute Guardian, Ninja, etc. And so by the time you'd picked 5 cards in a class, it was like, well, this is me.
Hmm.
So yeah, I do agree that obviously now the draft is more forgiving in that sense, where you can pivot a little bit more easily.
Yeah. So
Exactly.
yeah, in my pod, Briar was very open. Everyone was picking Guardian and Oldhim stuff. The guy next to me opened Cold Foil Voltaire or something, and so
Ooh.
he was also picking Ranger stuff. But I was, even though we were competing and right next to each other, I was able to get like a pretty decent deck still. So yeah,
Probably just means that nobody else in their pod was playing Lexi, most
Yeah.
likely.
You,
Yeah.
you
I think
should
like
you
one.
should have let them know when you picked your cards, Oliver. You've been like, guys, you don't know what you're doing. You should have announced it loudly.
No, thank you. I don't want to be like that. Yeah. Yeah, there was a honing hood that was passed around. I saw one. I passed on the second one and it came back to me, so I guess I was rewarded for that cuz I just want to see like if anyone else was contesting the ranger cards and it didn't seem like anyone was. So, yeah.
Exactly.
I'd like to clarify that I am, of course, being sarcastic about the announcing it loudly.
yes,
Just in
yes.
case anyone doesn't read that. Please don't do that. Just draft in silence. If you really want to have a chat about something, just have a general chat and move on, right? As opposed to talking about what's actually happening in the draft. The reality is, no one cares. I don't mean that in a mean way, but just everyone's doing their own stuff. And what do you actually get out of announcing that? If you say, "Oh, you guys don't know what you're doing," it just makes you look like a dickhead, honestly. Like
Yep.
that's
I didn't really like that guy.
yeah,
it's
exactly.
fine.
So just
It's
don't
fine.
do that.
Yeah. Like from a newbie perspective, I had fun. Yeah. I actually made a pretty decent deck and the deck did what I wanted it to do. Hopefully everyone else finds the same success. I know my friend, he drafted like 5 red Bramble Sparks for Briar and he had like a really crazy deck and he somehow lost in round 2, but yeah.
That's the
Because
beat
he wasn't.
sometimes you just
He just wasn't Oliver Fee.
yeah.
I don't know what you're talking about. I just play Ranger, man. Lexi's fun. Yeah.
So let's talk about that. You guys have been testing Ranger and Azalea in the last few days. I assume that's the only testing you've done so far for the Tales of Aria heroes. So let's hear about it.
I
How do you
think
feel about Lexi and Seek and Destroy / Overflex for Azalea?
I think one thing to understand, to clarify, is that whenever a new set comes out, I'm only testing Azalea. That's that's it. You literally 0 Ranger cards in the new set, and I'll be like, how does this impact my strat? Pretty much. So yeah, I mean, why don't you talk about Lexi first, Oliver?
Yeah. So I've played Ice Lexi, and I played a little bit of Lightning Lexi. Uh, I was initially hyped going into CC. After playing a couple games of CC, I realized how crap of a deck builder I am. So, um, yeah, the Ice Lexi did not work the way I wanted to. I think there's gonna be a little bit more tweaks I need to do. Uh, Mostly because the way the way fusing is that you have to have so many cards in order to pay for all your stuff, but also at the end fuse to get the bonuses. So you pretty much are just taking all the damage that you can, and then trying to return that while fusing and then arsenling that last card. Yeah, Ice Lexi, not too great. I feel like I need to change some stuff up. I can't go pure ice. I feel like there is a little bit of I need to add some lightning so I can get the fused ice storm more consistently. But yeah, Lexi has different lines of play than Azalea for sure. She does play a lot differently, and the games I have played, she is still very fun. And then Lightning Lexi, Snapshot. I played Snapshot Death Dealer. Is looking pretty good in my opinion. I know Kenny has also made his own version of the deck, but I'll just leave that to him to talk about.
Yeah. So I mean, I just wanted to say generally, I haven't actually played a game of Lexi yet, but I do appreciate that there's a few different lines of deck building that you can go with her, so that's good. Because that's what I appreciate about it. What seemed to be what they were trying to do with Ninja, even though it didn't end up being the case. But having different combo lines and stuff, that's cool, right? That I appreciate that kind of deck building. Whereas something like Brute or Guardian is much more kind of focused on, there aren't a huge number of lines of different styles of deck you can make. Or at least that's just my opinion. But especially for Guardian, where it's basically big, or go home. Anyway, on that note, in regards to Lexi, from what I saw, she seems fun. I would certainly say that she does seem very different from Azalea, which is good. Like the whole elemental arrows versus standard arrows is like an entirely different game. For me, I still like Azalea. I think Azalea is just like the perfect hero for me. She's really fun to play. The amount of skill you need to be able to sequence her turns effectively is quite high. And I'm a bit out of practice, so I think a lot of the games I was playing with Ola the other day were me just going, okay, let me just sequence my turn in 10 different ways and get this all right. But yeah, I mean, I didn't actually play Seek and Destroy. I think Seek and Destroy is a trap, and I don't think it's anywhere near as good as people think it is. I mean, a lot of the people on the Discord on the main fab thing have basically said that they think it's not good either. So there seems to be a lot of agreement amongst like Ranger players specifically. It's the kind of card that wows you when you first read it because it seems to have such a big effect, but the reality is that it's not that great. I'm not saying it's terrible, but like I mean, if you weren't playing Nimble Strike at all, it would replace Nimbleism flat out. There would be pretty much no reason to not play it. But it's not a savior card. If anything, Overflex is probably the better card out of the lot there. Overflex being just take aim 4 through 9 is pretty good.
Yeah, it is like it is also more card efficient kind of because it's 1 for 4 for the red one at least. So
Yeah.
getting that extra damage in
Yeah.
actually is very useful.
What do you guys think of Seek and Destroy?
Seek and Destroy, I think is I didn't even play it in my deck. I'm not impressed by it. It's fine, but it has no reload. It's basically just a +3. It makes your on hit scarier, but that's the thing. Like with Azalea, like your on hit's already scary, right? So like the problem is not making your on hit need to be scarier. It's landing the on hit and making it impactful.
Yeah.
And so
I imagine with Seek and Destroy, most people have, at least from what I've seen online, because I don't play Azalea, most people have noted that she doesn't have enough of a density to really threaten a great on hit every turn. So I imagine the Seek and Destroy is there to increase the density of scary on hits rather than actually being a threatening on hit. It does wreck combo decks though, so that was my kind of concern.
It does wreck. You are correct. It does wreck combo. So if someone's setting up for something massive, you just destroy them, right? Because it forces them to either go off next turn or I'd be unable to do anything. But like, I don't know. It's not even that. Doesn't mean it's not even that scary an on hit effect. It basically just says or block this attack. Like that's all you need to do. If it's really going to do something harmful to you, it just encourages you to all block. It's exactly the same in that sense as Red in the Ledger, where unless you get dominate on it, it's just an all block until you only have one attack anyway. So like, it's fine, but it's not the most threatening thing ever.
It's also very easy to play around. It's just you don't have an arsenal for next turn.
Yeah. I will say that one thing I've noted is New Horizon is so disappointing. Like, I've just been watching Oliver play it in Lexi, and so far I've been really unimpressed. That's not a slight at you, Oliver.
Oh,
but
yeah, no worries.
I think it's very weak.
So here's the question, right? When New Horizon was spoiled, I remember, and several other members of the Ranger community were all like, "Wow, Scobble Crossrep is now obsolete. There's no point in running it anymore. New Horizon is just better." Do you think that there are builds that New Horizons would be usable in, but there's still a purpose for Scobble and Crossrep?
Yeah. So to clarify, I would say that initially, when I saw New Horizon and I had that reaction, I thought that reload worked with it. And it doesn't. So the fact that it basically turns off one of the major mechanisms for Ranger, it's just a running joke on Ranger, right? You can't even load an arrow into your arsenal once you've got something in there because all of the bows say, or not all of them, but
just
Death Dealer
and Redliner, yeah.
Death Dealer and Redliner don't let you load an arrow in if you've already got something in your arsenal. So it's just things that just don't combo, right? So that was the problem I had with New Horizon. I had assumed that all of the stuff would work with it, and it specifically doesn't, which is extremely disappointing. I would say, look, there probably are decks where New Horizon can shine. I'm not ruling it out entirely, but it's nowhere near as exciting as I thought it was going to be. It's yeah, it's just okay.
Yeah.
I think Skullbone Crossrat. I like Skullbone Crossrat much better.
Yeah. So my opinion for New Horizon is that I think it really shines in Voltaire, where you can actually utilize the ability in the same turn. But most of the time, I found I was using it just to fix my arsenal. So if I had like something in my arsenal, I would flip it over with Lexi, and then it'll just give me another arsenal for me to use at the end of the turn. So, and yeah, initially I thought like, dang, this is pretty good, huh? But yeah, after realizing that reload doesn't work, as Kenny said, kind of cut the fun out of it.
Yeah, yeah. I'd also like to say that like I understand that if you actually look at the rules for reload, it's very clear. Like so, it's not a ruling or anything. It just makes sense based on the wording of what reload says. It says if your arsenal is empty, or if you have no cards in your arsenal, or something like that. So it's pretty clear if you read the interactions of the abilities, but it's not intuitive, and that is a big problem. And like it feels like the kind of card that should allow you to still reload or still load arrows in, and it doesn't. So I think that's going to catch a lot of people off guard. It's kind of like um the Death Dealer snapshot instant, that whole loop that actually makes you gain action points every single time. I don't think that's going to be very clear to a lot of people. I can elaborate what I mean on that. So just to clarify, basically, go again says gain an action point, right? So if you play something as an instant and then it has go again, you effectively gain an action point.
Yeah.
So Lexi at the moment with Death Dealer and Snapshot effectively just gives you go again frequently. Like you can snapshot, shoot, then instant load an arrow in, draw a card, and then you have an extra action point, which I don't think is something that's super clear. But you know, it's true. You do get extra action points.
Yeah, this has been around since like Rattle the Bones as well for
Yeah,
Runeblade.
for Runeblade. I knew it was the case when Rattlebones came out. I remember thinking Rattlebones was going to be the best card from Crucible.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully with the new Runeblade legs, I'm talking about the suede boots, not necessarily the creepers. Runeblade gets some new toys to play with, and hopefully can shore up his mid-range aggro build a bit more, where you can really have those consistent double attack turns.
Yeah, you wanna Slogism into Arcanite Ascendancy into Arcanite Ascendancy, don't you?
It's very tempting.
Or even
It's a
better,
very
you pummel the arc.
desirable line of
Yeah,
play.
yeah,
Yeah.
you pummel so you have that one
That's
resource
good.
left over, pitching a blue.
Right. Yeah,
Mm.
that's good. That's good. But yeah. So back to Lexi actually before we talk about Briar. Um, so Kenny, you mentioned that Lexi does feel significantly different from Azalea. Here's my
Mhm.
question. Does she still feel like Ranger, and do you still feel like that she sells the Ranger experience?
That's a good question. So, I mean, to clarify, I haven't played her, but from what I've been observing, yeah, she does look like a ranger still, right? So I would say that she still has that same complexity of sequencing. She still has bows and arrows which load up. She's still very much about kind of, as I said, sequencing this perfect turn. So I think she does capture the ranger feel, while being different enough to really stand apart from Azalea. So I would say that as a as a I'm just going to qualify this because can't have me giving praise to LSS or whatever. But as far as an individual in a vacuum design thing, I would say that's quite a success in that both Azalea and Lexi are rangers. They both feel like rangers, but they are clearly different rangers. It's not simply, it's not A/B flavor, right? Where it's just slightly different. They are very, very different.
Mhm. What about you, Oliver? Do you think she feels like Ranger, or is she more like Ninja Ranger or whatever?
Oh no, she definitely feels like Ranger. The main difference is that you really never want to have an arrow in your arsenal, rather than Azalea does want to have an arrow in your arsenal at the end of turn.
Mhm.
So that's like a little bit of a learning that you want to get used to, because there's a lot of non-attack actions that you can play from Arsenal that really benefits Lexi, especially for like Electrify, Polar Blast to get an extra card. But yeah, I really like Lexi. She's fun. I
Okay.
feel like she's gonna be maybe like a decent portion of the meta, if assuming the snapshot build goes well.
So you're not really super excited about the ice build right anymore?
No, I still am. I just need a little bit more time to build into it.
Figure out how which
Yeah,
what works, right?
yeah.
Okay. Well, hopefully Lexi does well. It'll be pretty funny seeing people complain about Ranger being good instead of bad for once.
Yeah. There was I was playing against Carlos yesterday, and I gave him 10 Frostbite tokens in one turn. Not that's not even like the top level. It's just that 10.
Wasn't even your final form.
Oh yeah, right. And then surprisingly, Channel Lake Frigid is hilariously strong.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I thought when I first read it, I was like, this is just really good, especially against like any hero that wants to do more than 2 actions per turn.
Yeah, it shut down Kenny for 2 turns. That was really.
Oh, that was it's backbreak. It is as backbreaking as I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
And it's just like, oh, okay, so I need to pay 1 energy to use Skullburn. Okay, I need to pay an extra energy to use Death Dealer. I need to pay an extra energy to fire an arrow. Need to pay an extra energy to participate in the game generally.
Yeah, pay 1 energy to take the counters off a tunic to get 1
Oh
resource.
god, that was a huge. So just to clarify that situation, there was actually a huge moment where the fact that I had to pay an energy in order to take the energy token off of tunic made a huge difference, because I basically wanted to use the tunic energy in order to pay, but I couldn't do that, and as such I had to pitch a card from hand in order to get the energy first, which I didn't want to do. So it was actually a significant thing, like really significant. I agonized on that decision for like 3 minutes. I think I ended up winning that game anyway.
Yeah.
But
yeah, you beat all my.
but it
you
was
beat
still
all the, yeah.
put Lexi in her place.
Sorry, my deck building skills need some work, so I'll come back to it. All right.
Sounds good. So let's talk about the heroes that you haven't played yet and have no experience with and just have read the cards. Oldhim and Briar. Let's go with Oldhim because I think he has more hype than Briar for some reason.
It's because of the shield.
I'm
Offhand.
pretty sure it's because of the ice, not the shield. It's the ice.
Okay, go ahead. What do you got?
For me?
Oh, no.
Yeah, go for
Yichin.
it. Yeah.
Well, I only played against Oldhims during the Seal event. I didn't really, play him. I was about to play him, and then I realized I only had 7 blues in my pool, so I was like, maybe not. First impressions on the Guardian cards. I am not as big on Terra Sunder as everybody else is, most because it's an extra 2 cards you have to use in your hand, and lining that up will be similar to lining up Arouse the Ancient's turn or another like a like dominated Crippling Crush turn, or not even like it's more than dominating Crippling Crush, right? So it feels very serendipitous, and therefore I don't think it's as good as people think it is. I think it will replace a couple of, like random cards in Bravo's build, but I don't think it'll happen often enough where people will go like, oh, that's broken.
Don't people want to do it for like the 7 damage Anothos dominate?
Is it say attack or?
Yeah, it's attack.
Oh, well.
Right? What do you think about it now?
That's broken.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty good.
Oh. Are you sure it says attack? Hold on 1 second.
That's what everyone was talking about when it first got spoiled.
Terra Sunder. Okay. In my defense, I was writing something at the time, so I wasn't paying attention. So
you can tear asunder on hammer.
Yes.
Oh, that's pretty good. Okay, yeah. Okay, that makes sense now. I am happy about Terra Sunder. Okay, Terra Sunder.
World-class judge Yichin, everyone.
Yeah. Terra Sunder is great. Reading the card explains the card. I should have read it before. Okay, Terra Sunder is great. I like the fact that they added a aura-centric aura to encourage an alternative style to play Bravo. I think all of the new cards that they released with Oldhim that Bravo can play do lend themselves to this buffing aura-centric build, Thump, Terra Sunder, Awakening, that I think might gain popularity as an alternative playstyle. So big props to them. LSS, I feel like tries to do that for all the heroes or all the classes they revisit, where even though they're adding new cards for the archetype, they're adding not necessarily cards that improve old archetypes, but open up paths for new ones.
I think you also mean Embolden, not Awakening. Awakening is an elemental.
No, Awakening I feel like is going to be part of that build too.
No, you said stuff that Bravo can use.
Oh, right. Yes. Sorry. Yeah.
Awakening is good.
Guardian card.
Yeah. Embolden is.
Awakening is good.
Yeah. Yep. Just for clarification, you don't want to lead our listeners astray. True. 2 listeners.
You shouldn't listen to me. I'm just a judge, so obviously don't listen to me.
Which one's Awakening? Sorry, is that the heal one?
That's the one where you create seismic surge tokens equal to the difference in your life.
Oh, that one. Oh god, yeah, that card's pretty gross.
It reads like a Timmy card, and as I was reading, I was like, this is gonna be really fun. I don't think it's gonna be as good as people think. I feel like it's gonna be about as good as Blue Towering Titan, where you basically either take your turn off to play it, or you're doing it and you're not getting too much out of it. Also, like if you're behind on life, right, and your options are play Awakening on your turn or play Awakening on your opponent's turn. If you play it on your turn, you're basically telling your opponent, hit me now and I won't block, and you'll probably kill me. If you play it on your opponent's turn, you're probably doing like one swing, right? So I don't feel like it's particularly strong. It's good at taking back tempo, maybe, but like the massive 21 damage turns that people are they're theory crafting for it, I don't think will happen too often.
What do you mean that? Hey, hit me now. I won't block.
So
The
okay,
whole
so
purpose of it is that your next attack gets discounted, right? You get to search your deck for the card. You just block
mhm,
out, and then you can play that card for free.
right, but if you're playing on your turn, right,
Mm-hmm.
that basically signals to the opponent that you want to line up a massive turn. So in that sense, I don't think that playing on your turn is the correct play. And if you ever play on your turn, you want to line up a 21 damage multiple attack turn. If you play it on your opponent's turn, that means you're just trying to get value after, blocking for a little bit, which is totally fine.
Hmm. I don't play Oldhim, so I can't tell you.
Okay. Well, you can
Do
ask
I?
some of the members of our local community, but I don't think it looks good, but I don't think it's going to be as strong, especially because he doesn't have those super high cost attacks like Crippling Crush to really swing back tempo. So
There's still Righteous Cleansing.
Righteous Cleansing is probably the best option. Endless Winter that I think he has is also pretty good,
Yeah.
but
Endless Winter I think
Yeah.
is very very good. Oh, is it? Which one's Endless Winter? Is that the discard? When they
that's
discard it?
the
No, no,
That's the
I'm thinking of
if
your
it's
card.
fused, if it's fused, whenever they defend, for each card they defend with, they create a frostbite token, and if it hits, whenever they activate ability, they
Gotcha.
create a frostbite token.
Yeah, yeah, okay, that one. Gotcha, gotcha.
Mhm.
'Cause I know card names. Look, if it's not an arrow, why am I paying attention?
If it doesn't have shot at the end of it, obviously you don't care.
That's literally every card. Shot.
I was talking about this on the drive back where we mentioned Ellis's maybe detrimental naming scheme where every class card uses like 2 or 3 words and then just has various adjectives around those words. Groot has it with smash and barraging. Uh,
And
Ranger has it
Bello.
with shot. Oh yeah, and bellow. Ranger has it with shot. Um, and I think like what was it? What was the other one? I think it was
Take. There's take aim. There's take cover.
yeah. There's like a bunch of words that they just kind of reuse and like repurpose. Runeblade has it with like Arcanic. So it's kind of funny. It's kind of weird. Um, I think it doesn't help when you're trying to read cards because you have to remember, oh, this barraging card is an attack versus not a non-attack, so on and so forth.
All right, I got something for you. What do you think about seeing Steelblade and singeing Steelblade? Hmm, that's one for you.
It's one word. It's one letter off.
I
Yeah,
know,
I know.
but there's two different classes and two different
See,
like
I think
cards.
that's honestly fine because you're never gonna see them together, right? So you're never gonna mix one up for the other because you're always gonna be like, oh, singeing Steelblade's the one with from Runeblade, seeing Steelblade's Dorothy's one.
Okay, yeah, that's fair.
Whereas barraging beatdown versus like or like you know
Barraging Bighorn
barraging bighorn.
is that one actually the generic?
Barraging bighorn's the generic, I think.
Oh god, that's annoying.
Yeah. So there's a lot of these cards that just share similar names. I'm pretty sure LSS has a thesaurus available to them. So I'm not sure why they don't use it, but I don't know. Their logic is lost on me.
Oh no, Bighorn is the brute attack. Barraging Bronhide is the generic attack.
See? Exactly.
Yeah, even we get confused, and we've been playing for like 2 years now.
Yeah. Don't forget like Smash Instinct,
Oh,
Arc, Smash with Big Tree.
just kidding. 1 year. Yep.
One year,
Lots of
yeah.
smashing.
Yeah. Oh, there's also barraging beatdown. So barraging beatdown, barraging bighorn, barraging bronhide. Which one's the non-attack? Which one's the
Yeah.
attack? And which one's the brute attack?
Yep. Yeah. As a new player, that's probably really confusing, huh? Anything else you got
Okay.
on Oldhim?
Oh, right. We're talking about Oldhim. Um, I haven't played him much. I wasn't very impressed with him during the sealed event. I feel like he felt very basic. so to speak. I didn't see many people activating his defense reaction, which I think is a big thing. I don't see many people using any of his crazy defense reactions. So maybe it's just that I didn't play against too many good Oldhims, but I felt like his one major card was Glacial Footsteps, the 6 cost, like 10 attack dominate card, and that was about it.
Yeah. Isn't Turn Timber like a rare though?
Yeah, it is. That's why you
Okay.
even
Yeah,
don't see
that's
it
why I
that much.
didn't see him. Okay. Yep.
Okay. Other than that though, like, yeah, I opened a Winter's Whale, cold foil, pretty nice looking. I'm excited to use it. That's about it.
Yeah. I feel like he's just a very different. Yeah. Do you think he plays any different than Bravo?
I think so. I think that he'll have less natural defense, so I feel like he'll actually trend more towards mid range than anything. Um, or rather, his ice build will trend more towards mid range, and his earth build will be light on earth cards and focus more on fatigue.
Really? But Earth is all about buffing attacks. Are you
It
saying
is all
it's
about.
Are you
Mhm.
saying it's fatigue because of the defense reaction?
It's fatigue because of defense reaction, and it's fatigue because a lot of the Earth cards have themes about like putting stuff on the bottom of your deck from your graveyard or from your arsenal. So and because you're going to be activating his defense reaction a lot more as Earth, so I feel like that he's kind of built for lasting a long time because he's constantly going to be putting stuff on the bottom of his deck.
Oh, I was just thought that was like the safety valve for whenever you arsenal a Toma Harvest or something.
Yeah, it's prevalent through a lot of Earth cards actually, and a lot of Earth fusion cards. So I do think that it is something that they're definitely going for, right? You
Okay.
have what was it? Break ground that puts stuff on your bottom of your deck. You have um just a bunch of cards that just kind of like put stuff on the bottom of your deck. So I think it's pretty good.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, Evergreen as well.
Yeah, Evergreen is good.
What about Briar? I know you played Briar and Sealed.
So initially I wasn't super hyped for her because I felt like her ability was kind of boring. Well, I mean that's coming from off a chain, right? Where a chain's like, oh wow, this is crazy. Um,
He certainly is crazy.
yeah, I do think that if Tales of Aria was released before Monarch, she would be very hyped and she'd be very powerful and people would love her. People don't love her right now because they have chain fatigue. I would say that she plays completely differently from chain, and her sequencing lines of play feels satisfying to pull off. Her kind of she really embodies the Runeblade theme of having a dichotomous skill set where if you're playing her Earth version, you'll be creating a lot of embodiment of Lightning tokens, and if you're playing the Lightning version, you'll be creating a lot of embodiment of Earth tokens. So I thought that was very clever in the design of Briar. It does mean that she is easier to build because she is kind of element neutral in her ability. So I feel like Sealed will trend towards Briar doing well because it's easy to build a Briar deck. Uh, in Constructed, I don't see her power just yet. I know she has a very, very Christmas landy OTK build with Force of Nature and just like Stubby Hammers or something. But other than that, I don't. I feel like she's going to be a very solid like tier 2, tier 3 hero. Nothing too crazy, but still very fun for people who like her. Okay, any of you, you guys have anything to add? I know you guys. I know
I
Oliver played against a couple Briars, right?
I only played
I
against
don't have.
Briar, but I don't think
Yeah,
they knew how to
I
use
don't
a
have too
deck.
much to add.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think they knew how to use a deck because I was just reminding them, hey, create an embodiment of Earth token because your attack hit and all that
Mhm.
stuff. Yeah, it is worth mentioning that like arcane damage and different sources of damage like electrify does make more embodiment of Earth token. So
Yeah.
um
So she'll be creating like multiple embodiment of Earths, and that's your primary way of getting defense and value compared to Lexi and Oldhim, with where Lexi has on demand dominate and the Oldhim has very strong dominate and very strong attacks. Getting those embodiment of Earth tokens will do a lot, kind of go very far in making sure that you're able to survive those. Overall, though, I know you played my deck after on day 2, right? In the evening. What do you think of that small taste of Briar?
I feel like it still has the same issue where you need to have 4 to 5 card hands to actually do anything substantial.
Hmm.
Because I know you need to have fuse for everything and then you need to pay for everything. So um I feel like this limited format is just tank as much damage as possible, and then see if you can hit back harder. Honestly, it's still like very racy. Like who can do the most damage in X turns. Most of my games they only lasted like 3 to 5 turns, mostly because I was just outputting so much damage. I was putting the opponent on the defensive. Also helps to have dominate on demand dominate turn one. So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
I feel like Briar's one of those heroes that just wants to maintain tempo. Um, I feel like Lexi is actually gonna be less so, where she's fine just having a off turn or two where she blocks most of the damage and just like hits with a dominate arrow for like 5.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I do feel like that. At least initially, where people are not very keen on blocking everything, this format can be a race. But I think as the format evolves in limited, people are going to be more understand when to block more, and will have a higher density of threes to block with. Because I do think that a lot of the people are overvaluing electrify and other lightning attacks that amplify damage, but they aren't really they have forgotten how to block, basically. Months of chain have made them immune to learning how to block if they're not playing a fatigue deck.
Well, one downside of this format is that there is no arcane damage like avoidance, I guess.
Hmm.
So that's why I think Briar, as you said, Briar is going to be a pretty easy hero to build, mostly because
Yeah,
there's nothing to really defend against her arcane damage. So she is always going to win in the long run, in my opinion.
exactly. Yeah, kind of like she doesn't have too many like sources of arcane unless she is able to consistently get off Rosetta Thorn. But Briar's like not very good on the back foot, right? Like
Yeah,
she
that's true.
needs to be able to tank damage.
Yeah.
So I think against Briar, the strategy you want to do as Lexi Oldhim is force out a couple blocks. Make sure that you have like enough frostbite or other debilitating effects that make her want to block, and then
Mhm.
you'll be able to take that tempo like that.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, I was able to disrupt their hand most because I had like Frostfang,
Yeah,
which says if it hits a hero, they discard a card unless they pay 2, and I also have like Portal Blast, which makes them pay unless if they don't, then my next attack is Dominate, which then will ruin their hand even more if it hits. So yeah, I
exactly.
just tax them to death essentially.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, any like Runeblade cards that you are thinking are going to be pretty big, like pretty
Mm.
staple for Briar, that is.
Oh, it's pretty staple for Briar. Any naked Runeblade cards are doing just mean her cards in general.
Eh, either one.
Bramble Spark, as you mentioned, felt very good in initial testing. Most of her Majestics feel at least decent. I feel like that Blossoming Spellblade will be only really playable in one type of deck, which is just the OTK deck. Obviously, people are super hyped about Duskblade. I don't think it's as big a problem as people think. If you've ever played Viserai, you'll note that, or Viserai, or even Chain, honestly, there's a lot of turns where you just can't get a non-attack and attack off, and doing like 2 or 3 damage or 2 damage is not very good. Like it's slightly better than Nebula Blade, but Nebula Blade's also easier to pull off and has less resource commitment. With Chain, right? You basically have to be relentless and you can't save up for a big turn. So I think that's going to be a major factor that Runeblades aren't evaluating properly right now in terms of the power level of Duskblade and Rosetta Thorn. Uh, Other than that, I mean, her skill set looks pretty fun. There's like very fun chains you can do, um, but nothing particular stands out for me because I feel like most of the excitement I feel towards Briar comes from being able to block for a billion after you attack multiple times and hit them, and get like 3 or 4 embodiment of Earth tokens.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. Okay.
Yeah, and I do think that she'll be very hard to take back tempo from in both limited and constructed. So it would be interesting to see how she plays out.
Yeah, because as you said, the more damage she does, the more embodiment Earth tokens that she makes, and then that allows her to defend even better. So if you're trying to do like a big attack, a single big attack that is, then it's gonna be
Exactly.
a lot harder for you. you to get
Actually,
through.
I think the single big attack is going to be a lot easier because you can just dominate. Give something dominate, and then she can't she if she doesn't have a critical mass of it, she won't be able to block it.
Yep.
Um,
Yeah.
I think the go-by decks will have a lot of trouble where even if they're making multiple 4 attack hits per turn, if Briar can just cleanly block that with like 1 or 2 cards and prevent most of the on-hit effects, she'll be very successful.
Yeah, that makes sense. So you're thinking there's gonna be like some control version of Briar out there?
I think if anything, it'll be it won't the control version won't exist. I think it'll just both versions are kind of tempo. It's just 2 different flavors of tempo where one of them focuses on attack actions and being able to block with 1 card in hand for the turn, and the other one focuses on making 2 big attacks per turn with a lot of non-attack backup.
All right, sounds good.
Cool.
Okay, I think that's about it. We've been chatting for like an hour and a half or so.
Yeah.
Yeah, quite a while. I was gonna say, unfortunately, I didn't have too much to add to the chats about Briar or Oldhim. Unfortunately, as I said, I only look at Ranger stuff.
I got one last question. What do you guys think of Korshem, the Fabled?
Oh
I
man,
hate it. Oh god, I hate it. That's my summary. My general thing is I just hate any more permanence existing in the game, and I know that it's not like a true permanent, like it can go away, but I also hate just how good it could potentially be. Like I've got it in a sample copy. I've got it in a deck I've made for Lexi Online,
Mhm.
and it's like the enabler for the end game. So without it, the deck doesn't work. So the fact that I could potentially have to pay several $100s for this card later on, and there are so few of them, makes me angry. Much like I have Ophidia in Azalea. Like, I actually think I is pretty good in Azalea, but I don't want to pay X $100 for a copy. So rarity makes me angry. That's the summary I have on that. Rarity and permanence.
Yep. Yeah, I'm on the same page as Kenny. Yeah, I know that you're also building a snapshot Lexi, and the amount of
That's correct.
stuff that she reveals in one turn to get all that bonus damage, all that bonus resources, it's so insane. But yeah, I'm not a big fan. What about you, Yichin?
I think aside from Lexi, I don't think it's a particularly problematic card because it's basically just a 1 turn buff because either you utilize it the turn you play it, right, and then you get a bunch of bonuses and that's just a 1 turn buff, or you don't utilize it and your opponent goes, "Oh, you're clearly setting something up, so I'll just like make a 6 attack and kill you and just hit you and that's it." And that's it. Since it doesn't function off of pitching, I think it's much easier to deal with. That being said, I don't like how it's basically a combo piece that's at Fable level. I agree with you guys. I also don't like the text. I prefer text that does what it says in like a non
Flavorful.
foreign language,
Yeah,
basically.
it was very
Uh,
flavorful, but yeah, it's
it's very flavorful.
very hard to
If they
parse.
release a PvE expansion and they have a copy of this in like some other type of border with that text, that's totally fine. But I'm not gonna hold my breath.
All right. Well, I guess that's it for our initial impression of Tales and the calling. So, you guys got anything to add at the end?
Not really.
Except for thanks for listening. I know that we talk over each other and we're not the most organized. Our podcast is solidly okay, and that's
Yeah.
We're on theme with
that's
that.
what we do. We're very on theme.
Yep. Oh, and if you guys want to check out gameplay of Oliver and KP's decks, you can watch the other videos on our channel. Give that like
What-
button a smash and like
No,
the subscribe
don't
button.
say that.
We have
What?
you have to you
Who
have to
are
let people
you?
know.
We're trying to
Please,
Oliver, we're trying to build our
please,
brand.
please clap.
What brand? We still don't
Please,
even have an icon. We don't
We
have like.
need spoiler cards.
please
Okay.
like, share, and subscribe.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks for listening, everyone. We'll catch you guys the next time we do this, which is
Catch you later.
when the stars align again.
Yeah, exactly.